Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alexa and Friends. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and today I have Chad Conway here with me from Span. We're going to talk all about that. But welcome to the show, Chad.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Certainly. So I feel like I need to keep track. I have a map that sits next to me here on the wall. I can't see it in the current shot, but I keep track of all the places that I've ever been, at least citywide, right? So I have a world map, and there's pins all over the place from places that I've gone through work or vacations. And one of the places I haven't been happens to be where you live. Is that you're in Hawaii, right?
I'm in Hawaii, on Oahu.
That sounds like a terrible place to have to live and work, but
yeah,
I'm glad it's toughened through it.
That's right. Yeah, it's a tough life, but somebody's got to do it.
Now, are you from Hawaii originally, or what prompted you to move there?
No, I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I've been moving west for most of my life. So maybe next stop somewhere in either Asia or Australia. But
eventually you come full circle on that, which is nice.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Family will be happy eventually.
Very, very good. All right. So one of the things that we do on this show is we start with a couple of silly questions that I like to ask. And as I warned you in our pre-meeting, I haven't told you what these questions are. So I'm excited to see your answers to this. So the TV show, for people that have been watching this stuff, I'm kind of into superheroes and kind of all the movies and stuff that have come out lately, but even into comic books as a kid. And one of the interesting things that I like to ask people is, based on all the movies and characters and everything that you may have seen or heard, if you got to choose a specific superpower for yourself, what would you pick?
I'd have to say I'm going to be on brand here and just give myself the wand that can electrify someone's house.
Ooh.
And so that would be my superpower of choice. I would just, show up or drive down the.
Oh no, we lost Chad there for a moment. I'll see if I can get him back. He wants to be able to electrify his house, or anyone's house, right? To have that power.
Huh,
and he's back.
That was weird. Streamer just restarted.
Oh, that's nice.
So I would just drive down the street and wave my wand and electrify homes.
Very, very, very cool. So is it a bit like when you see superpower or superheroes that have kind of electricity powers? Is it a little bit like that, or is this more like a very practical kind of like, I'm just going to show up and all the wiring is going to be done for you? Is it more that?
That's kind of, that's it, right? It's like right now, most of our homes have some form of natural gas burning in them, whether it's a heating system or a hot water heater or your kitchen range. And there's a huge movement that we need to make across the United States and globally to electrify homes. And that process is pretty intensive, requires a lot of humans, requires a lot of cost. And this process will create healthier and safer homes. So it would be really great to just blast that upon people.
Yeah. You always hear about one of those scary stories where somebody they had a slight gas leak or something and their house just exploded. Now, most of the stories that I hear, no one was hurt, right? They weren't home when it happened or whatever. But yeah, that is certainly a danger. Let's just pump this flammable gas right into everyone's home.
That's right. It's natural. So it's kind of like the grocery store marketing of natural. It's not like, doesn't have any standard. It's just, marketing.
It's just a word you can put on it.
That's right. Yeah.
Totally.
Sounds good.
All right. My second question for you involves a little storytelling, and so I have to start there. But the scenario is I want you to imagine you're in a large congested city like New York City.
Right.
And you're on 17th Street. You need to get to 18th Street, and your friends are meeting you at a restaurant on 18th Street. And so you're walking down 17th and you're like, well, I can go one way or the other, but I've got to go around this huge city block to get where I want to go. Or there's this alley right here in front of me. And the alley, it's a brightly lit day. There's no crime and nothing like that to worry about at all. So you decide you're just going to cut through the alley to get to the place. You can see it directly through the alley where you want to go. And so you get about halfway down that alley, only to find that at the end you're heading towards emerges a giant horse-sized duck. I want you to imagine a really large duck just blocking your way. Getting out of the alley. And so as any rational human would do, you're like, no, thank you. You turn around, you start heading the other direction, only to find that end has been closed by 100 duck-sized horses. So you are now in a situation where you have to find your way out of this alley. Neither end looks very friendly, but you need to find your way out. Knowing you probably have a slight scuffle or fight on your hands, which way would you go?
I'd have to go with just the horse-sized duck.
Big duck.
Yeah, I think, one-on-one, even though it's large, I have Great Danes, and so I'm pretty used to large animals. So I think one-on-one would be easier. Of course, there's the risk of the knockout punch, right? A horse has the back kick, the duck, I don't know, has a big quack maybe.
Right.
And 1,000 or 100, duck-sized horses. I think they'd get me by 1,000 little bites.
Yeah, a bunch of tiny bites. I mean, horses are known to be mean, man. I think that would be tricky. I'm with you in the one duck camp. I think that's the direction I would go also. I always joke with people that I think I would want to try to find a way to ride it, befriend it.
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me in my silly question hour. What I'd like to do now is kind of get a good feel for what your background is. I mean, we're going to talk about the company that you're involved with and the products that you guys are working on. We'll get to all of that stuff. But one of the things that this audience really enjoys is understanding how people got to where they are today. Because I think often there's a very non-traditional line that everybody draws, right? There's no straight line between like where you went to high school or college and what you're doing today. And so I think it's useful for people to be able to hear that. So you take us back as early as you want, whatever makes sense. But I'd love to kind of hear your story.
Yeah. So my story really begins in kind of childhood, and we won't spend too much time there to being aware of time. But my dad was big into cars. Always talked about how he was constantly fixing cars. So I got that kind of idea in my mind, and had this dream of rebuilding a car and then driving it to prom. And you think about the Hollywood-esque guy that's kind of wrenching on his car and gets it just barely running and drives it to prom and gets the hot date, right? And so I did that, but I did it in a 1980 electric commuter car, which was bright yellow and cheese shaped. It was kind of just a triangular shape. If you think about Cybertruck, but way less cool, that's what I had. It was a gentrified car.
I'm not personally sold on Cybertruck yet, so I mean, the design of it certainly is cool and interesting.
Right.
I'm very interested to see how they perform.
Definitely. So got the bug there. It was electric, so I immediately thought 1980. Now it's 2005. What's changed in 25 years? Not a lot. But I found, Tesla was developing the Roadster at that point. They hadn't even shipped a car, just had a fancy website. And so I kind of got the bug there. And in parallel, my dad ran a small heating and air conditioning and electrical company. So I would help him working on homes and actually improving their efficiency by installing high efficiency heating and air conditioning systems. And so those were kind of my early upbringing things. And that really influenced, my journey to date. So I went from rebuilding the electric car and driving that to prom, which my date was not so enthused, but it's, I won best ride. So I think, job well done. And then from there, went and worked with MIT on kind of the future of cars, thinking about cars designed for cities. Cities have been for about 100, little over 100 years now, designed around cars, the streets, the parking garages, all that kind of thing. So what would the best car be for a city? And we started with the concept of grocery carts are much smaller when parked than they are when being used. Yeah. And what if a car could do the same? So we developed a car that could kind of flip up on its nose, so that it was a lot smaller and skinnier. This was before the times of autonomous, right? Like autonomous solves all this because then you don't have any parked cars.
Right, it can go away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then we from that to developing a hybrid vehicle in college, a program called EcoCar. 17 colleges around the United States competed to increase the efficiency of a GM SUV. So, we got to wrench on that, do some modeling and things. And then from there, that led to Tesla. So I did 2 internships at Tesla, one here in the States, one over in Europe, both on the battery side of things. And when I graduated from college, joined Tesla, but decided to move outside of the automotive space, still in batteries, and into home batteries.
Got it. And that's like the
Tesla.
Powerwall they have. Is that what it's called?
That's right. Yeah. So I developed the Powerwall, was responsible for that program. And we went through 3 iterations. There was a smaller form factor that we only deployed 400 of in California back in the really early days, and then increased in volume and went global. So I did a lot of deployments and traveling to Europe and Australia deploying Powerwall. Now there's happy to see there's over 200,000 Powerwalls in the world.
Oh, that's amazing. So I actually just got my first electric vehicle. It's not a Tesla. I apologize.
That's all right.
But
any EV is great.
It's a hybrid. So Jeep Wrangler just came out with a hybrid.
Very
Jeep.
Cool.
And it's it changed how I had to think about my garage, right? I had to get a charger. I had to run another line. I had to do all the stuff that your magical powers potentially could solve.
Right.
But as I started exploring that, it was, right after I purchased the car. I think it's Ford is the one that has the car that they advertise will also charge your house if it needs to, right?
That's right.
I can run that kind of power. And it made me really think about, where we're headed with some of this technology. And I mean, the idea that if something goes down with my house and I can use my car as a battery to power my entire home, even on a temporary basis for a few minutes or a few hours, that is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Is really cool.
And I think, as you said, we're only really scratching the surface on a lot of this stuff, because I think there's much, much more to come.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm really excited for, the vehicles that are coming out today. There's so many more vehicles out on the market, and there's a lot of consumer preference. And then that vehicle to home is just a kind of uncharted territory that we the companies are just starting to market about. There's very little that's actually been done there, and we're excited to be at the forefront of it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so you were at Tesla forever. I'm sure you were friends with Elon. So something prompts you to leave there. What makes you? What's the exit? What gets you out of Tesla?
Yeah. Well, it was funny. We were continuing to try to innovate. Getting into. I was the 5th person on the energy team, so very early on that. I was very early in electric cars. As I said, there was no electric cars on the market. Tesla hadn't even sold a Roadster yet when I was getting into electric cars. So really early, like to get in early, love to innovate. And Tesla was getting to a point where they had gotten some really great products to the market, and they were really thinking about how do we scale these, and their impact was going to be less on the innovation. And some may disagree with me on this, but there's less on the innovation and more on the scaling, right? So how do we build a gigafactory to build 1 million of these batteries, rather than how do we build the next best battery or other product? And so Arch and I were innovators. We love to try new things and get in early. And what we were seeing in deploying Powerwalls is that, and solar and EV charging, was that it was very difficult, right? It required you to go into somebody's home and oftentimes re-architect the home electrical system. And for folks that had slightly older homes, they needed a panel upgrade. And the panel upgrade was something that nobody could understand, cost a lot of money, and generally just people were like, nope, I don't know what you're selling me, but I'm not interested.
Right.
I'm interested in the solar, but if I got to do this other thing that's a gray box to gray box, I don't want anyone selling me a gray box. And so we saw that as an opportunity and said, why don't we add value to that switch? Why don't we look into ways to make the panel really valuable? It is such a core piece of your home. It touches, every single electron comes into your home from either the utility or your solar inverter, and then leaves through that panel. And so it really gets to see a full view of what's going on in your home. And so we thought of it as the perfect opportunity to add monitoring and controls. And we have done that. And now we are deploying that across the United States to ease the adoption of solar and battery storage. And then as well as electrifying your home, whether it be for an EV charger, as you mentioned, or it's for, some other appliances.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So you're at Tesla, you have this idea and you're like, I need to go do this. And so you just jump out and say, hey, we're going to start this thing in Hawaii?
No. So, in early days, we were just meeting in a coffee shop. We were just kind of shooting the idea around. We had passed some ideas around at Tesla to try to see if they would go anywhere. But like I said, Tesla was in a place of, they knew what their development schedule was going to be, and it was a lot around volume. So Arch and I were kind of sitting in co-working spaces and kind of meeting, and then quickly moved to my garage and started wrenching on some hardware and getting some prototypes together. And then we moved to a place that used to be called the Tech Shop. I don't know if folks may remember. The Tech Shop was a co-working hardware workshop that you could buy a membership to. And so we moved to one of those in San Francisco, and that allowed us to kind of really do some more hardware and software development and get the early backing of some investors.
Awesome. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So did you operate this like a traditional startup? Like you have to find funding and make sure that you've got things under you before you just go crazy with all this?
That was right. Yeah. So, Arch did a lot of the early finding of fundraisers and things like that. And then we both worked pretty heavily on finding the rest of the team. So early days, it was just him and I, and then we quickly grew to 4. And then it was, a couple of months, we found 5 and 6 and kind of slowly grew. And now things are moving at a much faster clip, which is awesome. We've been in business for about 3 years now, and we're over 50 people.
50 people, man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
amazing.
So we've kind of hinted at what it is your business does. We've talked about the panel and some of those things. But I know you gave me a video. Would now be a good time, you think, to kind of give people a quick glimpse at kind of what this product does?
Yeah, that'd be great. This video is the new app that we're launching here next week, actually.
Cool.
So we came out with the first iPhone app, and this new app really kind of talks about what we're doing and how we do it.
Awesome. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes. That's very cool. So the first time I watched that video, and this is before you and I had even had a chance to talk. I was like, it just got all these sparks flying in my mind, to use a play on words. But it was really interesting to me to think about the fact that I've gone. I mean, this is a smart home. In fact, I noticed that I don't have everything working. I go, Alexa, start the Office nonsense. Those, for some reason, are off. There we go.
Hey.
Yeah. So, like light switches and power controllers for garage door openers and front door locks and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And I think I still would want all of that, but it was really interesting to think about the idea that every circuit in my box is now controllable. And the idea that I can turn those things on and off when necessary, or even schedule them, is kind of incredibly interesting to me.
Right.
I think for some that might be seen as an inconvenience. Like, why would I want that whole floor of my house off?
Right.
But if it happens in concert with things like Alexa knowing you're not home, why would you want all that power running? That's a great example.
Right. Absolutely. I think, if we were to summarize what we're trying to do, we're trying to increase the safety and improve the health of your home. And so if you think about the health of your home, that's the obvious thing that we've already been talking about, which is the electrification, getting rid of any of the emissions that are in your home. But when you think about safety, it's got a really large band of what that actually means. It can be anything from the resiliency piece of, if we lose power due to a utility outage, making sure that you've got enough backup power, whether it's from your car or from your home battery, to last you through when the utility comes back. But then there's other pieces of it, such as we can detect, when you're out of the house and you've left the stove on, and we can say, hey, looks like you left. Maybe you left something. You turned the oven on to heat something up for your potluck. Right. Grabbing that out of the oven, you're rushing to the car because you're late, and we just push you a notification in the car saying, hey, looks like your oven's still on. Do you want to turn it off? And you just turn it off right from your phone.
That's fantastic. You just sold one to my wife, for sure. And not even for the oven thing. She's notorious for not remembering whether she turned her hair straightener off.
Right. Exactly.
And so every time from the bottom of the driveway, I've got to stop, get out of the car, go upstairs, check and see if it's been turned. And every time she did turn it off. Right. But my solution to this problem was to hook it into a smart plug. And I can just go into the app when we're pulling out of the driveway and be like, no, it's off. You're good.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's what we want to do. And
some of those problems.
Yeah. And we want to do that without you having to, set up that smart plug, right? It's like, we should know your general trends in the home and be able to detect an anomaly, whether it's a user anomaly or an appliance anomaly. Could be your hot water heater or your air conditioning or your refrigerator using more energy than normal. Maybe it, needs some service. So there's a lot of different opportunities there that we don't even know about. We're not even thinking about on a daily basis, but SPAN can get that data and then serve it to you in a way that you can really understand.
So it's even monitoring like the draw on each circuit and all that kind of stuff to say, hey, this stuff's happening.
That's right.
That's
exactly.
Cool. Oh, that's super cool. So I have this is a selfish question for me, but I think a lot of people will probably value this, and that is, let's say that I want to build a house 5 years from now. Traditionally, I would find a home builder and they would build me a standard house, and it would probably have the standard utility box. And
Great.
What is your picture of like the perfect scenario for a new house build? What would you do differently based on what you know about managing electricity and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would start out with your core infrastructure of SPAN panels distributed, a couple in the home, and I think we're at a place where we don't need light switches. I'm kind of leaning a little bit forward to that. I think there's certain instances where you're like, gosh, it's just faster to hit the switch on the wall, but certainly I think the combination of Alexa and SPAN could get you to a place where you really don't need light switches. And
that's a bold statement. Like, that's headline grabbing.
Yeah.
Founder of SPAN says light switches are obsolete. Like, I like that. That's
it would make homes easier to wire. It would, really simplify things. Your home's going to be more beautiful. It's going to require, less components,
Yeah.
faster to build. So I think there's a lot of really cool things there.
Is it okay if I unpack this? Because I want to get a better grasp on this. So the way I think about the circuits in my house today, they're zone by zone, right? Like I'm in an office that's in the corner of my house, and one circuit operates this entire room and my daughter's bedroom up above me.
Yeah.
So as I'm doing all sorts of crazy wiring in here all the time. And so every once in a while she'll be like, why are all the lights off? I'm like, oh, I had to rewire a thing. So like a light switch or whatever. And so it occurs to me as you're talking about this, if I'm eliminating light switches, then something like SPAN or whatever smart board I have in my house, there's way more circuits. Because you're actually you're suggesting localizing all the light switches to the box and then controlling them via whatever smart controller I want, even if it's a stick-on light switch that isn't actually wired in, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're describing?
Exactly. Yeah. So in the newest National Electric Code, so there's requirements that basically make you have to have each room have its own circuit anyways, and often two. So it's one for your lights and one for your outlets. And in that case, why have a light switch, right? You're either going to have smart bulbs or smart switches from like inside SPAN. So you can, pair those with Alexa, and as long as you have a Alexa device in the room, you should be pretty set. And I mean, ideally, we're getting to a place where we have the right sensors, so we kind of know whether you're in the room or not, and we can do a combination of voice and proximity, and really just have your house work for you.
Man, my mind is exploding right now. I have all these ideas. One of the ones that stands out to me, and this is something that I've seen with voice and with tablets and computers and like the evolution of devices, is that all of what you've described so far sounds incredibly interesting for the homeowner, somebody that lives there all the time. But if my mom comes to my house, what you just described, she would have no idea how to turn a light off.
Yeah.
At least in today's world, for us to turn a light on and off, we generally have to know the name of the room or the name of the lamp, talking to some voice assistant, or we have an app on our phone, but she's not going to have any of those things.
Right.
So the idea that just popped into my head, though, is we have all of these wireless charger devices, right? The Qi chargers, right? It would be very interesting to I don't know that this is the right solution. This is just what popped into my head. But what if, as part of the circuit that is already run into your room, at about light switch height, there's one of those sitting behind the wall with some magnetics of some kind.
Yeah.
And then you could put fake light switches on the wall that run off of that between the wall power, or really any other kind of controller, right? If you just wanted to have a dial for the fan, it's a smart controller. It's not directly connected to the thing. But has there been any exploration around stuff like that? I don't even know if that exists, but it's just something that popped into my head.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a bunch of different ways that we already are controlling. You think about fans in modern like ductless split air conditioning systems, they've got a little fob that you can walk around the room in with, right? So I think there's that backstop. You can have the little controller. But I think, I see, if we're thinking 5 years from now, similar to how when we were looking at cars designed for cities, we weren't thinking about autonomous. I really think that there's a future where we're gonna find out that whether it's Bluetooth or another technology, that just because you're walking in the room, we're gonna know who you are and how you like your settings in the home. Even if it's your mom or a guest, it's pretty intuitive to just say, how do I turn on the lights? And then Alexa hears that, right, and it's just like, I know the closest speaker to that user was the one that was in the office, and therefore I know to turn the office lights on.
And I hope we can get the smarts to pull some of that stuff off, because I feel like today a lot of this stuff is pretty good, but I wouldn't call it master level detection.
We got a lot of work to do in 5 years, but I'm hoping we can do it.
Another example I have of this is I have two kids. They're 17 and 13 now, but I've had this in their bathroom upstairs in our house for probably 10 of those years. And the problem I have is that they get up in the middle of the night
Yep.
go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever they're going to do. And they walk into the bathroom. And what I did is I put a motion sensor light in, just like nothing smart about it, just a simple motion sensor. So it turns the light on for them. But the real reason I did it was so that when it stops detecting them, it turns the light back off.
Right.
Because they will consistently go in there, get a drink, leave the light on, and it shines right down the hall into my bedroom. And I'm like, what is all this light, right? Like,
yeah. You wake up in the morning, you're like, the whole house is on. Yeah.
Right. And so as I think about those things, though, like that is a perfect scenario for their bathroom until they take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're in the same bathroom and the lights are on, but they close the shower curtain, and now there is no motion. And so now they take showers in the dark, and I feel terrible about it. I'm rewiring this to solve that problem, but it's like those kind of weird edge cases start to flare up, and you're like, well, how could I possibly ever know which one it is?
Well, that's because your home isn't connected and smart and working for you, right? Like your home should know, hey, we're somebody's taking a shower in this room, right?
Yeah.
So because ultimately, the 5 years from now, shower head should be like voice controlled, right? And so you can actually change whether you like it high pressure or low pressure or whatever, right? And then in that case, we already know the flow. And so we can say, hey, somebody's taking a shower, make sure we keep the lights on.
So the answer to my question is, Jeff, you're not thinking big enough.
That's right.
We just continue to compound these things on top of each other. And why do I even need to ask? Like, it can just recognize me, like with simple cameras or even profile video, to be able to say, like, hey, that looks like Jeff. He likes his water at 115 degrees, and he likes the nozzles to shoot the water this. Like, I guess we really could go that whole route. You're painting a big picture for me, man. I like this.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I love to do. If you think about, I don't know if you've sat in the driver's seat of a Tesla, but it has a profile setting, and it has a number of them, and it will pre-connect to your phone. It will set the steering wheel and the seat to the right spot and everything like that. Some of your other presets, like your driving mode, is already set as well. Wow. And so I think that's just a little piece of the future that we are going to see in the home space.
I have sat in a friend's Tesla, and I've driven a friend's Tesla.
Great.
But obviously I've never used his car before, so it didn't know me or detect any of those kinds of things. But it's still connected to his phone, even though he was in the passenger seat. So if it was me and my wife, and we both owned this car and had both had profiles, is Tesla smart enough to know who's in the driver's seat?
It doesn't. It's not smart enough to know who's in the driver's seat. You do have to select that from the drop down. But they have gotten, at least they added one feature, which I think a lot of partner pairs that own a car are happy with, which is which phone is the priority. Because if you have two Bluetooth devices, it just tries to connect to whichever one first, at a random. And so the car that I drive occasionally here, I mostly bike, but it's my partner's, and so her phone is priority. So whether she's sitting in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, she gets to choose the music.
Got it. She's in control of the music. I like that.
That's right.
Perfect. All right, so we still have plenty of time left, and I think there's lots and lots yet to unpack. So as you think about the circuit boards that we have in our house today, and we think about the wiring, and you've given me a lot to think about for the next house I want to build. I thought I had a very unique idea, but it turns out pretty much anyone that's ever worked in technology all has this same vision, which is 100 acres, a very well-powered solar-based house in the middle of those acres, and not a single person anywhere to be seen.
Right.
And so that's the thing that I'm actively working on. I live in Ohio, and there's no shortage of great land here, at an incredibly reasonable price. So I think the plan very soon is to buy the land at we're talking like $100 an acre kind of craziness.
Right.
And then slowly but surely start to piece together a house as budget permits.
Awesome.
But what I'm curious to know is, and you've like I said, you've sparked a lot of thoughts just in this conversation. But what does your 5 to 10 year look like? What is the big picture? Where is? I guess I'll just ask that.
Sure. Yeah, I think for Span, we're really thinking about how do we have the largest impact. So we kind of, especially I think in related to my career, it's kind of you have a small impact at a really large organization that has a large impact, right? So your net impact, I think, stays the same but grows over time, and that's a combination of those two. And so at Span, we went from having the company that has the big impact to then moving into a place where individually we all have a much bigger impact, but our net, our total impact stays the same because we're not impacting as many people. So we're hoping to change that and get to a place where the company is having a lot of impact, getting into a lot of homes throughout the United States and hopefully abroad as well. Because this is our decade to decarbonize. We really have kind of a ticking time bomb here. We're seeing a lot more natural disasters and things, and we need to get in front of this and make sure that we're doing our part to reduce the emissions of our personal emissions, whether that be our car or our homes, making things healthier in our homes, and then also just making your home be your partner. The home has always provided shelter, but it's never really worked for you. I think of those little different ways that we can offer you insight and education about the energy that you're using. So
it's funny you say that. I think every homeowner watching would probably agree that, in fact, we work for our homes in many cases.
Right. It's just you're constantly fixing things and repairing things. Exactly. So, wouldn't it be nice if your home gave back to you for all that hard work that you've put into it?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the shelter aspect. It's a big one.
Right. Nobody wants to be living in a tent. Yeah. You got to have the house for sure.
So do you guys have a vision? Not that this isn't already big, but do you guys have a vision beyond the board?
We do, yeah. So
Tesla jumped into other things as well. Are there other product offerings, other things you guys are looking into?
Yeah, we'll have a full family of products. We have quite the roadmap. Of course, I can't divulge into it too much, but in general, it has things to do with getting more information about your home, as some of the things that we talked about here just a few minutes ago, and then really using that data to assist you. So if we can be your partner in your home and enable the easier installation of solar and battery storage, EV charging, and or electrified appliances, we're going to do that first. But then our ambitions are much larger than that, and really encompassing the full home aspect.
Awesome. Going back to Tesla for a second, again, just because I have my own personal questions I like to ask sometimes.
Sure.
Is the Tesla solar roof what the marketing says it is? Is it do you know, is it as good as it seems to be?
Yeah. I think once it's installed, it's as good as it seems to be. It's a really robust roof that provides electricity, and it's really beautiful. And I think one of the things that I certainly learned from my time at Tesla is that making things really sexy and appealing makes people care, and then therefore they talk about it, and then you natively get the word of mouth sales.
Right.
So Elon famously always says that he doesn't spend a dime on marketing, and that's because he's the biggest marketer, right? He's out there outlandishly talking and things like that, which is really great for the brand. But even more than that, the products just being beautiful from an engineer's perspective, it's real big pain.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to make things beautiful. There's a lot of compromises that you have to make to get there.
Well,
but
speaking of beautiful, I will drop these on here just for a second.
Yeah.
I have a picture. I think this is from your house of one of your Span panels installed. And I mean, this is here. I'll just show it to everybody.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. That is just absolutely cool to me. First, it caught me off guard because it looks like it's outside.
Yeah. So Span can be installed inside or outside.
That's amazing. But then on top of that, it just kind of blends in. It's not that old cruddy gray metal door. And I don't know. Here's another one. I mean, it blends right in.
That's right.
That's so neat.
We did a lot of work to make sure it was something that can be a part of your home wherever it is, right? Whether it's on the outside or in a hallway often, and in different places. And so yeah, that first photo was my house. And when we moved in, there was an old electrical panel there, of course, and someone had put a painting over the rusty old gray box. And so, they were trying to hide it. And now I think it's something that, we really show off and
Yeah.
can.
Well, you're certainly in a position where you want to show it off too.
Of course. Yeah. I'm a little bit biased.
Right. All right. So, what else is on your mind? Are there other things that you'd like to share as we continue talking about this stuff? Is there stuff that's on your mind that maybe I haven't tapped into yet?
I think that, the untapped, going back to a topic that you had brought up earlier, which is the vehicle to home and vehicle to grid of vehicles, is something that is really interesting. And we're just starting to scratch the surface of what that means. The resiliency piece of it, oftentimes folks are thinking that electric vehicles aren't as resilient as gas cars, but what they forget is that you only have as much range as is in your tank, because oftentimes the gas stations don't have backup power to pump the gas. Yeah. So, fully electrifying your home is something that's really important to being more resilient. And I've seen that firsthand. I was in the Caribbean in 2017 when there was, several hurricanes, and what you found is the hurricane would go through and be devastating. But the amazing thing is 24 hours later, you've got the sun, and the sun is up, shining down and saying, I am tons of power, here you go. And folks that had batteries and solar immediately, right then, got power back, their refrigerators powered right back up, and everything, they were able to live for the weeks and months that they didn't have utility. And SPAN is a really key piece of that now, because you can actually have a reading of how much longer your battery is going to last. And that's something that we analyze your existing usage, and then we give you an estimation of here's how many hours or days you have left, which is really cool. And then you can change the priorities of different circuits in your home, whether it's moving, say, okay, I'm not using the kitchen right now, I'm going to turn that circuit off, but I am about to get ready for bed, so I'm going to turn the master bedroom on, and allow you to really efficiently use the battery storage. And with Alexa, we can actually ask Alexa how much battery time remaining I have. So that key piece of what we're doing, we've made available through Alexa, so you can, throughout the outage, find out how you're doing, how much energy you have left, right. And then outside of an outage, you can also find out what space is using the most energy. So you can actually ask Alexa, where am I using the most energy, and kind of get educated about your home while what you're doing, whatever else you're doing in your home.
I imagine SPAN would probably freak out about the room I'm standing in right now. Between the nonsense lights I have behind me, but also, like, I've got 2 spotlights, I've got 4 computers running in here, 4 monitors, microphones, right. all sorts of stuff. I'm sure it would not be happy. Like, hey, there's something happening in that room you might want to.
Or it could be really happy and say, hey, we're going to make sure that this is a priority, because if the power went out right now,
we'd want this room to stay up for sure.
That's right.
That's something else that I found as we were talking about the cars and the batteries, and whether they're reversible, right? So the car can power the house can power the car. I find it very interesting that we talk about cars like Tesla, and people do complain, like, well, what about the range?
Right.
Yes and no. On the flip side of that, this is my 3rd Jeep Wrangler. That's me. From about April 30th to Halloween, I don't have doors or roofs on my car at all.
Yeah.
And that's just how I drive it. And if it rains, I'm just not going anywhere. That's fine.
Yep.
Well, since I got the hybrid one, I've had it since I want to say like the end of March, early April. I've filled the tank once.
Wow.
And I've put 3,500 miles on it.
That's awesome.
Now, having a charger in my garage is obviously really convenient, but it doesn't have a huge range. It has a 27-mile range. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
But it has a full gas tank also. So I could easily make a 3-4 hour round trip without stopping anywhere.
Right.
But the fact that I never, like, I'm actually at the point now where I feel like I need to reach out to Jeep and just ask them, like, how long before that gas gets stale? Right? Because I'm just not, because most of my driving is less than 27 miles round trip.
That's awesome.
And it's,
did you know that before?
I had a pretty good feeling for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I look at, I mean, that has to be a case they've thought about, which is what if somebody only ever uses the electric? But it's become so powerful to me because my electric bill hasn't changed at all.
That's awesome.
Nothing, like it's not sucking any power out of my house enough to make me like, oh, that's where my gas bill went. It went to, that's not happening.
Right.
And so as I think about those things and I think about what my next car looks like, unless they come out with a full electric Jeep, I might have to find something else. Yeah. Because the idea of a full electric is really, really appealing, not only just for the cost savings, but I mean, it's just like the power, the zip that the car has.
Right.
It's so weird to roll down the street silently, right? Like nobody knows you're there. It's awesome.
Except for those big beefy tires that you have on it.
Yeah, that's true. But I will tell you, it honestly sounds a lot more like a beefy golf cart than it does, an off-roading vehicle. But it is, and I can still take it out in the mud and drive around on hills and stuff, and it's awesome.
That's so great. Yeah, it's funny. My father had 2 Wranglers while we were growing up, and so he I stole it from time to time and really enjoyed that car. So I'm happy to see that they're moving the electrification front, and they have I think said that they are going to come out with the full electric. We'll see when it comes out, but I think the Rivian is going to give Jeep a good run for the money, and we'll see if Ford comes out with an electric Bronco as well.
Yeah, and the Bronco is really interesting to me because that was my first car.
Nice.
You were talking about your cheese slice, but mine was mine was a black Ford Bronco 2, man, and that was the best car I ever owned. I paid like $1,200 for it. Yep. It lasted 18 months, but it was great.
Yeah, $100 per month. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But now that they're bringing the Bronco back, it's kind of nostalgic to me, and I see a lot of the Jeep in that. It's really cool.
I think there's always going to be enough buyers for that off-roading vehicle. You had Toyota come out with the FJ for a little while, and try to compete with Jeep. I've found that it's really interesting. Jeep brand on its own, at least the Wrangler brand, is worth more than the entire like Chrysler platform. So it's kind of amazing.
You often hear about like the downstream revenue, and the vehicles themselves probably make Jeep plenty of money.
Right.
But when you think about all of the other businesses that are foundational to what makes it a Jeep experience, right? You've got Mopar and all these other brands and parts that people make to like customize and change your car. When I looked at the Bronco or even the Toyota FJ, because I definitely looked at those, there's none of that, right? None of that exists. But meanwhile, with my Jeep Wrangler, there's like 70 different kinds of doors I could put on.
Totally
amazing.
Yeah, there's a whole suite of things that you can buy aftermarket, and it's pretty awesome. I still love wrenching on cars, and some of the cars that have sold so many units out here in Hawaii. The major one is the Tacoma. There's still a lot of Wranglers, but the Tacoma is the king out here, and you certainly have every aftermarket place is working on things. And so I'm hoping that Toyota will come out with the electric Tacoma. They've been pretty late to the game on electric, and so we'll see what happens.
Which is weird, right? Because the Prius was one of the first big.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Cars.
They certainly led the industry there, and have fallen behind. And they've come out with an electric RAV4 twice, but never in high volume. So they've tried it out. So I think they just haven't made money on that yet. The Prius, obviously, they've made a ton of money, but sales are declining there, and so they're. I think we'll probably get a surprise. They probably are working on something. They'd be silly not to.
Well, I think I saw that they brought the Supra back a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Which is a cute little car. But man, one of those in electric would be something.
Totally. Yeah. Oh man, there's an awesome, a bunch of bunch of great cars that once they're electric, that peppy acceleration or the off-roading capabilities of the low torque are going to be really great.
Right. All right. So one last question, because I've gotten this from a couple of the people in chat.
Yeah.
The first question was ROI, because as people talk about solar, and I just put a new roof on my house, and I was headed down maybe the Tesla, maybe solar, something up there. But the ROI on putting solar on your house, at least in Ohio, is 7 to 10 years.
Right.
You really start to feel like you're getting savings. And I only really plan on being in this house for 5 to 7 more years, so it didn't feel like a good investment. But I'm going to take that money and parlay it into the next place that will be as much as I can. But the first question that I saw in the chat was, is there any kind of ROI on something like SPAN? And then the second question I have, just if you're willing to share, is what does something like getting SPAN cost?
Sure. Yeah. So the SPAN, like you said, solar ROI is 7 to 10 years. The one thing that's really important to know is that there's been several studies that say homes with solar average selling price is about 5% higher. So that even if you're not going to necessarily pay for the whole value while you're there, you will get a higher sale price, and it is something to market. People are looking for that now, and it's certainly an advantage there. And then on SPAN, there isn't a great ROI today. We are going to tell you a lot more about your energy use and things like that. But we're really an enabler. We're going to make sure that you can actually get that EV charger. There's many scenarios where customers have a underground utility service and they want to add an EV charger, and their panel is currently only rated at 100 amps. In that case, you'd be stuck with a pretty low power charger. And if you have a long range EV, it won't charge up all the way overnight. And so if you add SPAN, we can actually make sure that you can charge your car at full speed when there's no other or less energy load. So we can see, hey, your air conditioning is turned off, and you're not using your full utility connection, so we can actually charge the car faster. So that's one really great thing that we enable. And over time, as hardware will get cheaper. All right, so as we increase the volume and the deployments, the panel will get cheaper, and there will be better economics of it. And the last thing is that the Biden administration is working on a American Jobs Plan that includes panel upgrades, because it's so vital to electrification of your home and your vehicle.
It goes back to the full infrastructure of this country, but on an individual house by house basis, I totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole infrastructure of your home can be improved, and so there's a potential where we can actually make some of the economics a lot better with a tax rebate similar to how they've incentivized electric vehicles.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So that'd be really great.
Yeah. So someone just asked, so is it more of a smart energy monitor or something more specific to EV and solar? And my answer is this is a replacement for what people refer to as the fuse box.
That's right.
The panel in your house, usually in your basement or your garage, that manages all the circuits in your house. This is a new replacement for that, but that has all of the smart utility that you see with many other devices.
That's right. Yeah. So we kind of collaborate the safety piece of the circuit breaker panel, which most folks only know about because they've plugged in a toaster and the coffee kettle at the same time and had the breaker trip, right? So it's kind of it's something that we don't think about unless we have a problem with it, and we're trying to use that as an opportunity to get data. So we actually monitor every single circuit in that. So that might be your kitchen, your kitchen range, your hot water heater, and your lights, for example, in this room. And then we can also turn those things on and off. So each circuit is configurable, and we can turn them off wherever you are in the world.
Got it. Okay, one last question, and then we'll wrap some things up here. I think the answer is no to this, but I'll check. Can you use the car battery to supply power to the house? I know we talked about that a little bit, but does SPAN enable that? And he's sorry if it already answered. Certain cars and chargers offer this, I believe.
Yeah, so today there's no vehicles except for the Nissan Leaf that allow you to do bidirectional. Ford famously has come out with the Lightning will be able to do this, and we're actively working on figuring out what that's going to look like so we can enable that on both the Ford Lightning and other vehicles, because that is certainly the future, and SPAN is going to be a really key, important part of having a vehicle power your home. The vehicle is only going to have a limited power output, and we need to make sure that the home energy consumption stays within that
Right.
that power output, and SPAN can do that actively.
Awesome. Hey, it suggests to me that it's possible. If you're bringing solar in, then bringing a car in probably isn't a big leap from there.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chad, I want to say thank you so much for being here today. This has been like, I got to go write some stuff down. I have ideas just running around inside my head. So I'm glad we got this opportunity to talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.
And to everybody that's tuned in, thank you guys all so much. If you haven't registered already, we have an event called Alexa Live coming up here next week on Wednesday. So if you get your chance, make sure to register for that. We've got all sorts of new announcements and technologies coming out for developers next week. So with that, Chad, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.